This took me years to figure out, and I made a lot of mistakes before I got to the cake and icing mindset. It was something that I developed over making, working for publications and trying to work for businesses and not really figuring out the mix between the two to actually make money in my business and pay my bills. So I've been told that, a lot of people make six figures writing for magazines, and they did, and they still do, but the number is shrinking all the time. So I was like, okay, well, I can make six figures writing for magazines. But then I realized that the amount of work and pitches and hustle and all that stuff I had to do to constantly get magazine assignments was just not right for me. It didn't fit for me. And a lot of times I was taking really small assignments to supplement bigger ones, and I just ended up burning out. So after all of this stuff that I figured out in my business, and after making mistakes and making all these errors, I was like, you know what? This is like cake and icing. This is how we should develop our businesses. And I feel like this has been something that made my business stronger. It's helped a lot of my coaching students, and it's made it so that I have reliable income that makes sense and I can do the assignments that I want to do. So I'm going to say hello. Getty's here, and Vicky's here, and Linda's here, and Tommy's here, of course, and the pets are here. Can you guys see them? There they are. Let's see if I can put them in there. There's one and two. She's sitting up, sitting back. She's interested in the Tritos. Good job, Charlie. Charlie, do you want a Trito? She's like, yes, please. Bear's like, please give me Tritos. There you go. Good job. Bear, you want a Trito? Good job. All right, everybody got their Tritos. Now we're ready. All right. So, with our cake and icing mindset, here's how it works. The cake is your recurring revenue. A lot of times it's retainers or it's bigger projects that span a quarter or 6 months, and that's kind of how you pay your bills. These are usually in niches that are very big, that have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of clients that make between 5 million and 50 million in revenue, at least. Usually they make more. Usually they have 100 million in funding, or they are like, big companies. They're at least places that have a strategy, figured it out, and they know they need writers to help them. So your cake a lot of times is your big beefy stuff. Your icing is everything else that's too small to make up recurring revenue, or it's magazine assignments where you get 4 assignments a year, or there are things that are like 500 here, 1,000 here, 200 here. They're all in places where it would be really difficult to cobble together all of that to make a livable income. The other pieces that you got to think about for icing is like they're usually what's like the fun niches or like your pet project niches. So a lot of times your icing niches are very small, like they're subsets of niches. So let's say, for example, you're a health writer. Let's say one of your icing niches is like women's health, or let's say it's like infertility. Let's say it's something that's a subset of food. Let's say it's just restaurants. Let's say your icing niche is like I have real estate, which is a big cake niche for me, and then I have prop tech. And prop tech used to be an icing niche. It used to be a lot smaller, but now that there's iBuyers and a lot of technology and people getting funding all the time, now it's more of a cake niche. But your icing niches are things like sometimes it's pets. It depends. Like, if you're doing small stuff for pet companies, that can be an icing niche. Little things where you can't find thousands, big lists of companies that make between at least 5 to 50 million. So your icing ones are more fun things that feed your writer soul, or they're things that you like to do that bring in money, that are exciting, but they're not like, as the more you work in them, or the more you kind of dabble around and have assignments, you realize that the income is inconsistent, or the amounts that you're getting from magazines or trade publications or businesses are just really small. Their budgets are small, and they just don't have the money to pay for a $10,000 content strategy project, and they don't have the money to pay for ongoing regular blog posts or a case study every quarter. That's just not going to work for them. But they can pay for maybe one blog post every month, or they pay for a few pillar pages of content, and that's it. They're kind of these one-offs in terms of assignments. So, is that Snorkel or Peanut? Snorkel Peanut is just Charlotte. So that's the funny thing is we call sorry, I'm gonna diverge for a second, but we call Charlotte Snorkel Peanut. So she as a whole is Snorkel Peanut. Um, and I will tell you guys about that later so I don't lose my train of thought. So I'll get back to that later. So when you're thinking about your cake and icing mindset, it's a really big change in how you kind of run your business. You need to have cake niches so you can pay your bills. And that doesn't mean that you have to have cake niches that you hate writing in. Like if you hate finance and you don't want to write for mortgage companies and you don't want to write for personal bankers or, well, not personal bankers, but banks or credit unions or, credit card companies or whatever, like if you don't want to do that, then don't do it. I find that if you find cake niches, like let's use finance for example, it's better to find that bigger niche and then find where you kind of fit in that niche. So if you like, for example, like I find a bunch of finance things interesting, but not all of them. So like my thing in finance a lot of times is mortgages because I write about real estate. So I kind of combine my two cake niches to find the piece in there that works for me. And the same thing with like health. I wouldn't really like write about healthcare that often. Like I have and I do sometimes, but it's not something where I seek out healthcare type businesses. Like I don't seek out like BCBS or Amana or Humana. Amana is a fridge. Humana or like those types of companies. But when it comes to health, I do care about like how health influences our food and our restaurants and our pets. I care about how health and travel intersect. I care about how health, like mental health, affects different industries. I care about freelancers getting health care that works for them. So there's a bunch of different things in here that you can slice and dice within a cake niche. The deal is that you have to have that wide assortment. So like there's a ton of mortgage companies. There are a ton of real estate companies. There are a ton of prop tech companies. There are excuse me, there are a ton of places that deal with the types of finance or the types of health or the types of food or restaurants or whatever that I want to write about. So when you're thinking about building your business or refining your business, you got to think about your place. You don't just look at finance and take one piece of it, because I can tell you from experience that there are a lot of businesses that say they're a fintech company. They're not. They're a prop tech company. They just think they're a fintech company. Or there's a lot of companies that say like, oh, we're a healthcare company or we're a health tech company, and they're not. They're really, what they're doing is revitalizing this other industry, and it happens all the time. Oh wow, big stretch. Good job. So for us as writers, don't necessarily. Oh, prop tech is property technology. So property technology has to do with apps and software that surround real estate. So property technology is basically just um, like it could be an app that helps real estate agents make videos. It could be software that helps them, like a CRM, like a customer relationship management tool. There's a lot of different things that are in prop tech. So, and fintech is financial tech. Yeah. It could be, some people call it fine tech because it's finance, but I like fintech because most of the people in fintech I've heard say fintech. So, plus it's called fintech, like little fin. So, when you're thinking about your niches and thinking about where you want to work, look at the breadth of those niches. So I always recommend to coaching students, like, go out and look at freelance writers in that niche. You will find that they vary so widely. It's like if they say they write about finance, the finance is the SEO term in their website and in their LinkedIn profile and where they put it on social to attract clients. Then they usually write in a ton of different areas within that niche. We're looking for big terms to hook the fish, right? Big terms like finance or real estate or prop tech, like big terms that people understand to reel in the client. But really, our clips are wide. There's people who just write about personal finance, then there's mortgages, then there's lending, then there's apps, then there's commercial real estate, then there's this there's residential real estate, and all these things are still in financial. Like there's a lot of different things, like even financial is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and kids learn about finance and retirement and um, um, like specialty loans that people get, or iBuyers, which are basically like Open Door or Homeward or um, well, I guess Homeward isn't so much, but like iBuyer companies where like you sell your house to a company and then they sell it on the market, so you get the money from them and buy your new house. So there's a lot of different companies within these niches, and if you look at all these freelance writers, you will see the breadth of their clips. You will see, oh, goodbye. I guess you're not getting any Tritos. I guess you're gonna wait. Um, you will see that they write in a bunch of different things. And when you think about, you're like, oh, finance sounds boring. Well, maybe there's just a part of finance. I'm just using finance. Let's just clear that up. I'm just using finance as a general thing because it's just a big niche. So if you find a big niche like healthcare or finance or SaaS, like software as a service, SaaS, SaaS, or like real estate can be one, food can be one, insurance can be one, health can be one, healthcare, health tech. Ag tech is growing. It's not necessarily like a super big niche, but it's definitely growing. There's a lot of them that you can find that just have these huge piles of clients. But you can also look at people's profiles and websites to figure out where you might fit in. Do you want to work for these types of companies? Now, like whenever I say look at their websites, I'm not saying pilfer their clients. I'm not saying like go after their clients and be like, oh my gosh, I should just go after like I should look at their logos on their website and just send LOIs to other clients. No, you can, I guess, if you feel like they take multiple writers and that you really have the clips to back it up, but don't do that. What you're looking for are types. You're looking for patterns. Are there most of their clients like lenders? Are most of their clients credit unions? Are most of their clients um, personal finance blogs? Are most of their clients healthcare companies? Are most of their clients prop tech companies? Are most of their clients ag tech or food tech? Um, you're looking for patterns of what these types of companies are and if you want to write for them. So when you look at the types of companies, then you can flip over to their clips. Like, are those clips things that you want to have? Are they topics that you're interested in? Are there things that you care about writing about? There's a lot of different pieces there that go together. So when you're thinking about your cake niches, they're very deep. That's why they're cake niches. They have all these little pockets. And I can tell you from experience that I got into real estate writing not only because I thought it was interesting because I had it, but because I had an editor who just asked me like, "Hey, are you interested in real estate? You want to write this column?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And I just got into it that way, and I fell in love with it ever since. So I think sometimes you have to learn what that niche actually entails, and then you can start like picking apart all the little pieces within the cake niche. But those cake niches have amazing depth. There are just, man, there's just so many different types of companies, and you might find that you like that you can write for a fintech company and then an insure tech company, and maybe they're both in the like technically under the finance niche, and maybe you can write about a real estate company that's also in the financial niche. Um, there's a lot of things that we can choose from in our cake niche. Plus, a lot of times when you're talking to cake niche clients, especially if they have that like at least 5 million. I used to say a million, but with all the stuff that's happened over the past year and all the companies that have been out of business and really struggling, I think 5 million is kind of the cap right now. It's just they have to have money to put into other projects like content and expanding their brand. And I just don't think I haven't seen under 5 million be they're really gonna cut their expenses. And so 5 to 50 million is kind of your butter zone for like, is this kind of a cake niche? And then there has to be thousands of clients in there. Like you can Google lists of them, like list of fintech clients or a list of finance or not clients, list of fintech companies, list of finance companies. Like there should be big lists that you can just peruse on Google that are just hundreds and hundreds of companies. So your cake niches are going to have the budget to, because there's all those companies, there's competition, they have more money, they're thinking further ahead. Like they're, this like the last year or two have been maybe rough for them, but they're not going out of business. They have a firm foundation to stand on. So they're going to have content marketing strategy and say like we need case studies and white papers and blog posts and ebooks, and maybe we need to take a webinar and make it into this other type of content, or we need to write a deck, like a pitch deck, or a script for our podcast. They're going to have ideas about where they want to take their content. They're going to know where they're going. So your cake niche is just, there's a lot of opportunities there to learn more about your niche, to actually have recurring revenue in your business, and work with people who more understand content. They understand how, ow, you, you stretch right on my toes. They have more people who understand content, how that affects the long term of their business. They get it. They understand that content is really what's pulling in the sales, what's getting people to subscribe, or what's getting people to be interested in their product. Your icing niches. What are you doing over there? Okay, someone wants a Trito, so we're going to have to dispense the Tritos right now. Okay, can you go back to your little hobbit hole? Let's see if we can get her back to our hobbit hole before I switch to icing niches. So if you guys have questions, or if you guys feel like you got to go back to your hobbit hole. If you have questions or you feel like this has been helpful so far, make sure to give it a thumbs up. You have to go back to your hobbit hole. Yeah, and make sure to give it a thumbs up, or subscribe below. If you guys have questions, you can pop them in the chat, and then I'll get to them at the end. But we're going to try to see if we can get Snorkel Peanut back on our thing. So while you have to go back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up, back up. Good job. Good pets. Bear's like, I stayed in my spot. I deserve 2 treats. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. Everybody's had their Cheetos. So we'll have a little Snorkel Peanut intermission. So we call her Snorkel Peanut. This is going to sound really silly, but we call her Snorkel Peanut because when we got her, she's smaller than our other dog. So we had a dog named Bruce, and Bruce was a Great Dane Mastiff mix. He was 110 pounds, and he was beautiful, and he passed away unexpectedly. It was really hard for us. So when we got Charlotte is only, she ranges like, she's like about 50 pounds. So she's half as big as Bruce was. So for us, that just felt really small. We were like, wow, she's a peanut dog. Like, she's just very small to us. And so we, that kind of spurred the peanut part. And then what we found out was, like, when we walked her, she would come back and just go eyes deep in the water and just drink it all up. We were like, wow, she needs a snorkel, like, or she's gonna, pass out. Like, she'd just go all the way up to her eyes, stick her face in the water bowl, and we just combined snorkel and peanut. She became Snorkel Peanut. I have videos on their Instagram if you want to see her drinking like that. But we just call her Snorkel Peanut because she's small to us, and also she drinks water like up to her eyeballs. Like, her whole mouth is in there trying to swallow it all. So yeah, hey. Now she's trying to get some Cheetos. Okay, let's talk about icing niches. So your icing niches are going to be smaller things. They don't have as much depth. They don't have as much money. And their content strategy is much smaller, if they have content strategy at all. Excuse me. I have to cough. I'm going to mute myself so you guys don't. So your icing niches will be smaller subsets of cake niches. So a lot of times what I get is, especially since I have dogs, people ask me about pets as a niche. And pets can be a niche if you go in the right direction and you find the right thing. So pet insurance, they definitely have money and they understand content strategy, so that can be a fit for some people. But the amount of pet insurance companies is not as big as like human health insurance. So that's one of the things that kind of limits it to more of an icing, is like, you don't have thousands of companies, you might have hundreds or maybe dozens. The other option is, like, people are like, oh, I like pets, I'll do pet food, or there's pet accessories, or there's BarkBox, or Chewy. There's all these different brands that support pets and pet parents, and that's cool. But the other part is that they're not always creating a ton of content. They do have blogs. They do have blogs. They do have email drip campaigns. They probably don't have webinars. They probably don't do case studies. They're direct marketing to consumers, which means consumers are getting things like, maybe they're following them on social, so they're getting a bunch of videos, or they're getting the drip campaigns for a sale, or they're getting, the blog isn't being used necessarily to drive sales all the time. It is sometimes. So while they may create, while they may create content, it's not always the depth and amount as other niches. So that's why things like pets or women's health or infertility or Let's see, what's another good icing niche? Like for me, like restaurants can be sometimes my icing niche because I'm not marketing directly to restaurants. I'm usually doing stuff that surrounds restaurants, or I do a lot of magazine articles about restaurants. So if I'm doing a lot of magazine articles, like I'm not getting a big 10K project for that. So subsets, you look super cute today. Good job. Subsets of your cake niches are usually icing. And I find that with icing niches, these need to be kind of things that you really care about and that you use this for, it brings in money, but it's not a huge thing paying your bills. Like there's just not the amount of content, there's not the amount of projects there, but it's something that kind of feeds your soul. Cake niches can also feed your soul. They can also be exciting. I'm not saying that they can't. I have lots of cake projects that I love that are definitely things I'm excited about, but the problem is building a career that pays your bills and then kind of gets all these things right. It pays your bills, it has enough work, you have a bunch of companies to choose from. So if you get a crappy client that you don't like working with, excuse me, sorry, I'm just having a cough thing today. So if you get a bunch of clients that you just don't like working with, you have many options to switch to other people. Icing niches are more things where you're like, I like to write about this. I really care about this topic. I really care about this subset. And that can be your icing where it's supplemental income, but it's not as regular. You write 5 articles for $1,000 a year, which $5,000 a year is basically paying for your kibbles and maybe some vet visits, and that's about it. Oh, bye. But these are things, what we're using this cake and icing principle for is to balance our income and also balance the things that we like writing about and balance the topics so that we can get all the things we like at the same time. I guess this is kind of a way to describe like how to build your business to actually make money and then ramp it up. It's not about picking niches that you hate writing about because you're like, oh, it'll make money. Like I've seen dozens, if not hundreds, of freelance writers choose niches because they're like, oh, I heard finance makes money. I guess I'll just do that. And then they're like, I hate it. They're like 1 month or 2 months or 3 months in, and they're like, I hate it. I don't like this. And it's like, yeah, because you can't just write about something just because it makes money. That's not going to work. So we're trying to find the balance between like, okay, what cake niches work for me, and then are there any kind of smaller things like that I want to write about that just they just don't have the content projects, so they're kind of in the icing category. It's more about parsing out where we can kind of see more opportunities in our business. So that's kind of the overview so far. And one more point I wanted to make was that when you have this cake and icing mindset, you're able to say no to things you don't want to do. So if you have your retainers and you have bigger content projects in your cake niches and you have your icing niches that are kind of like filling in the gaps, then you're able to be choosier about what you work on. If you only have icing clients, then you get in this cycle where you're just like taking work and taking work. It's money now. You're getting in the money now, money now, money now. And it's very hard to break that cycle because you just don't have enough time to market and you don't have enough time to look at different prospects, and you end up just getting burnt out. You're doing all these small assignments, you're trying to meet all your clients' deadlines. It can be really frustrating. But when you have the balance between the two, then you're able to say no and pick the projects that you want, and you can talk to people. Like you can say like, it really sounds like they value content, like they understand the value of content in their business, rather than being like, yeah, I'll take your project, like I don't care what you think, like sure, I'll take your project. And we want to find that balance where our clients value our work and understand what the content is bringing to them in terms of like the future of their business. The other piece is when you have cake niches and you have retainers and you're working with companies that really understand how many pieces they need over a quarter, or they understand like what their content strategy is for the year and how to get someone to help them with that, that's how you end up making more money in less time. You're not spending all your time in icing niches trying to make a ton of money, like rabbit pace all the time, running around getting all these projects done. You have more work that is spread over a period of time that allows you to be like, okay, this, I already know these two companies want me to do these two projects over the course of this quarter. Like, let's say we're about to be in Q2, so let's say Q2. So then you're like, huh, okay, well, right now that's enough to pay my bills, but I would like to be not paycheck to paycheck, so I need a few more projects. So now we know what our current load is and what we can add to it, which means we can make more money in a shorter period of time. When you're working on icing projects, what happens is you make less money over a longer period of time because you constantly are working on small assignments. You're constantly trying to market to find all these things like the one-offs and the short assignments where it's like 2 or 3 pieces. Like those things keep you churning rather than people who are already having like companies that already have a content strategy, understand what they need every quarter, like they understand the flow of the content, and it's longer. It's just longer form in terms of your contract, in terms of what you're turning in terms of deadlines, and that helps you plan better. It helps you make more money in like a much shorter period of time. And I know that that's worked in my business. Like for me, the best stuff that I've done, like in terms of scheduling, has been really paying attention to projects I take on, clients who value the work, who understand like what the content is doing for them, how that works within their niche and in their business type, and then it being this strategized thing where they understand what needs to be delivered over a longer period of time rather than taking one-offs and assignments and all of these short things over a period of 3 months and 6 months where you're just constantly working deadline to deadline over and over and over again. So I hope that was helpful. I'm going to look in here for questions. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat. I'm going to give you guys a update. Charlotte has settled down a little bit. Let's see if I can. Here she is. Bo is geriatric, so he went to sleep. So here you go. Barry, you want a Trito? Nope, he's asleep. He went to sleep on us. He thought I'm boring. He thinks I'm boring. All right. So let's go through and look for questions. So we already answered, is that snorkel or peanut? It's both. Okay. So Vicky says, we're going to put her up there. It's thinking. Vicky says, I'm realizing the 5 million bottom line threshold is necessary in Canada, even outside the pandemic. It's less competitive here and businesses don't seem to market until they get quite large. Yes, that's the point. Underneath 5 million, they're scrappy, they're bootstrapped, they're trying to do everything themselves. And until they get funding, until they make more sales, until they kind of figure out how to deal with their finances and get more money in the door, like they're doing everything themselves to save a dollar. The point that they get where they're just like, I can't handle this anymore, like their business has grown to a point where they need outside help, that's usually the 5 million range. Like sometimes it's a little bit less depending on like how the funding works, but usually 5 million is a really good thing. And it's true, like the higher you go up in revenue, the more nervous people get like pitching those bigger companies. And then also like it's just the option to hire a freelancer is always less expensive than an employee. So if they're able to have someone as a manager, a content marketing manager, someone to handle, like sometimes it's social media manager, someone to handle just overseeing freelancers and just overseeing that the project gets done, that is cheaper than hiring a manager and copywriters and then proofread, like a lot of people underneath that manager. So let's see. Ooh, Linda said she had an aha moment. That's great. I'm so glad you had an aha moment. I wonder what it was. Maybe you can share it in the chat. We talked about what prop tech is. It's property technology. It's apps and software that's within the real estate space. Fintech is financial tech, which means like it could be kind of the same thing. It's like apps or it's software or different types of technical stuff within the finance space. Let's see. Any other questions? Oh, this is a good point. So Tommy says your icing niches can be projects that you want to take for clips. So this is true. Sometimes what happens is you want to get a cross clip. So for me, a lot of times my clips cross 2 niches, like real estate and mental health, or food and travel, or travel and real estate, or health and food, or insurance and prop tech, or insurance and real estate, like, or insurance and pets. Or there's a lot of different crossover there. And sometimes, in order to get a clip for one client, or you're like, hey, you know what? I've realized that I really like working for X type of client, but I only have clips that are directly opposite. I don't have one cohesive clip. Sometimes, what you can do in an icing niche, even if it's small, is go in to a trade magazine and pitch them some ideas and get a clip that crosses those two niches, or gives you kind of like a small icing clip so that you have it to move on to bigger clients, or you have it to get started in a new niche. So I've done that a bunch of times. Like if I want to move into a new niche, magazines are great because you can pitch them ideas. Like they will give, and then you can get the clip, and then that helps you move on. And in my experience, I've found that magazine clips are really impressive to clients. And like I love doing magazine work, like interviewing people and research and putting it all together. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do. So if you can kind of do that, that's one thing. And then smaller niche companies like your icing subset, that would also help you get clips to move into bigger ones, or it can help you move into different things. So like let's say um, you you want to move into a bigger cake niche. Like let's say you're like, man, um, I have all this stuff about maybe a super small, like I have all this stuff about women's health, but then I realized like I think I can parlay that into writing for hospitals. So let's say you write about women's health and hospitals, you find a clip for there, and then you can use that as part of saying like, yeah, I have clips. Here's a clip I have about hospitals and women's health, and you can use that to parlay into other cake niches. So Linda says, let's see if it'll pop it up here. She says, my aha moment is the one about the career development as cake and the other writing as icing. Yeah. So you always want to make sure that you understand that your cake and your icing work together. Cake is like the meat of your business. It's the part that brings in enough money to pay your bills, but it's also the bulk of the work that you're going to do. So that means it needs to be stuff you like doing, client types you like working with, clips that you want to get, and that it also is something that feels fulfilling, and that it's something that you want to continue doing. Don't pick a cake niche just because you're like, I hear lots of freelance writers make money in this. Like there are plenty of niches out there where people say like, oh, you can't make money in X, and then there's examples of people who make huge piles of money in that niche, and that's because they're really excited about it. They're ready to go after it. Like, and it is a cake niche if you look wide enough. So if you look at travel, you can look at all the things outside of travel, like not just travel publications. It could be travel companies, travel apps, travel software, things that help travel agents do things that help consumers do things. It could be luggage. There are tons of things to look for in the travel industry that aren't just like destinations or things that you see in magazines. Like the travel industry is huge. There are lots of things that help, like kayak booking things or Airbnb. Like there are lots of travel, even now where travel has really suffered. There's still, if you wanted to look at it, there's huge, like basically a spider web out of options within the travel niche. So, I think I'm going to do one more Trito break. And if you guys have any more questions, you can pop them in the chat. And if you feel like this has been helpful so far, give it a thumbs up. If you feel like you want to hear, more advice about how to grow your freelance writing business, feel free to subscribe. We're going to do one more Trito. Can you get over here? You can go. There we go. We did it. Bear's asleep. Bear, are you awake? Let's see if I shake it. Oh, there he goes. Hi, Bear. Welcome back. You want a Trito? Good job, buddy. This is what happens when you're 14 and a half. Charlotte's only 8. Beau's 14 and a half, so he's big on the nap time. Like, as long as you put him on a comfortable surface, he'll just fall asleep. That's kind of his thing right now. So, okay, so I hope this was helpful, and I will be back next week. Like, we meet every Friday at noon Central Time for a live stream. You can ask questions. You can pop in and leave them in the chat. If you watch this video and you're like, I don't get it, tell me more. You can pop them in the comments and I'll get back to you. And yeah, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you guys next week. Bye. Have a great weekend.